In this video I will show you exactly how I recreated the Battle of Jakku. There is a quick message at the end of this video. I'll be giving you some very important information about purchasing or downloading these Star Wars edits, so watch till the end. So back in 2015, when I saw Star Wars The Force Awakens in theaters for the first time, one thing immediately stood out to me. This. What the hell happened to that Star Destroyer and why is it there? Questions got answered in Aftermath Empire's End, and we also got the Battle of Jakku DLC for Battlefront, which gave you the perfect experience of this battle. So now that I am finally on this level of editing, I decided to recreate this event the same way as my previous Star Wars battles. So, first some information about this PSD. I'm gonna be honest, I have no idea how much time I spent on this, but I'm gonna take a guess, probably around 4 hours. I used 22 images and the number of content layers is 36. Internal layers add 67 to that, which makes it 103 layers in total. The file size is 1.12 GB and the resolution is the same as the previous ones, which is 3 squares in a row. So, without any further ado, let's break this baby down. I started with a blank document, obviously, and I added my first layer, a gradient, which represents the sky. On top of that, I added an image of the actual sky. To blend it nicely, I first decreased the opacity by 63% and used blend if to remove everything below a certain brightness. This way, only the clouds were visible. Then, since the edges looked absolutely horrible, I changed the blend mode to screen and used a layer mask to make it fade out at the bottom. Beautiful. I wanted a sun, so I simply added a new solid color and tapped on the mask with a round soft brush. And for the light I did pretty much the same, but a bigger brush. Now that the sky was all set, I could start with the foreground. I dropped in this image and moved it to the right of the composition. I removed the background and used a vibrance adjustment layer to make sure the right side of the image had the same colors as the left side. I added my next image and removed the background too. I copied that one and put it in the middle. As you can see, the rocks on the right image are still there. But how? I used blend if on the right image to make sure the bright part, the sand, gets filtered out on every layer below it. To really connect it with the right image, I added some layer masks and blended the images together. I also used a solid color to make that dust which you can barely see, so to really connect these two with the right image, I used vibrance to desaturate them and brightness and contrast for the brightness. I duplicated the right image and moved it to the left side. I used blend if again to remove the bright areas and copied it again for the middle area. Finally, I added two masks to integrate them with the sand better. And now comes the most important thing, the Star Destroyer. I masked it out and removed some highlights I didn't want with exposure adjustment layers. Then I used a very dramatic level adjustment layer and two more to kinda make it look better. Then I added color balance to make it more of an old dusty color. I wanted the engines to be still running, so I found a lens flare online and dropped it in 3 times. I set their blend modes to screen and used masks to remove some parts. Then I used a hue and saturation adjustment layer to add a blue glow from those engines, and a solid color which blend mode I set to screen. I wanted to add some more dust since the planet is pretty much only sand and dust, so I added another solid color and used a dust brush. Who would have guessed that? To add some depth to the Star Destroyer, I added another sand image, used Liquify to change its shape, an exposure adjustment layer to darken some areas, a layer mask to remove some stuff, and finally a hue and saturation adjustment layer for the blue light. For some smoke in the background, I added another solid color with a smoke brush. The engines needed some more blue light or glow, so I used a blue solid color which I clipped to that original solid color and then added a layer mask to only show it at the areas around the engines. Now it was time for some real dramatic smoke, so I found this photo of smoke and put it behind the Star Destroyer. I used levels, color balance and vibrance to match the color and cut it out using a layer mask. I copied that whole thing and changed the values a bit and moved it to the left. Now the sky didn't really match anymore, so I added a color balance adjustment layer to fix that. Now, before we're moving on to the other chaos we're gonna add, let's explore some fun facts about the planet Jakku. Jakku is a desert planet with a diameter of 6,400 kilometers. If you compare that to Earth, which has a diameter of 12,742 kilometers, it would be this size. So Jakku is a desert planet, but apparently it wasn't always a huge sandbox. Years and years and years ago, the planet Jakku was covered with green vegetation and oceans. However, at some unknown point, the planet was reduced to barren desert wasteland. And Jakku has 2 moons. Imagine staring out of your window at night, seeing 2 moons. Well, that's enough for today. Let's return to the video. Okay, so back to the document, let's add some 8080s because those look sick as hell. To color correct them, I added levels and color balance, and hue and saturation, which you can barely see, so I don't know why I even mention. But then I was like, wait, that smoke comes from somewhere, so I added one more right here. To add some more clouds and smoke trails in the sky, I used this image, used blend if to remove most of the blue and set its blend mode to screen. Then I manually added some more strokes by using a solid color and a brush with a low flow value. Low flow. There still was not a lot of depth in this image, so I decided to add a background landscape. I added 2 of the same images and removed the background. To break the consistency, I used liquify and masks to change their shapes. For the colors and stuff, I first used vibrance and color balance and then levels and color balance. Now, when I revisited this document, I saw this next step and I was kind of wondering why I did it at all, because you will literally see no difference at all. But anyway, I added another image which I think was supposed to be the ground right here and used a mask to remove the hills and levels and color balance and a solid color. It's such a small difference, I don't know why I even bothered at all. Anyway, so next I added the same dust effect I did on the Star Destroyer, but this time on the foreground, aka a solid color with mist and smoke brushes. Then again a solid color with smoke brushes at the left side. This great image was made by this person on DeviantArt. He definitely deserves all credit for this one. I used blend if again to remove most of the sand, duplicated the original to paint some areas back, removed the top with a layer mask, another to remove some stuff in the front, hue and saturation for some color, and levels, color balance and vibrance for the overall color. The only visible person was added and I masked it out. I used exposure for the shadow and exposure, levels, vibrance and hue and saturation for the colors and the highlight. Now let's throw some action in here. How about a crashing blockade runner? The colors were fixed by using levels and I obviously masked it out. Then I added a solid color again with some smoke brushes and enhanced that with another solid color and smoke brushes. I also added some debris which I fixed using levels and copied using... wait, what? I also added some fire which I color corrected with hue and saturation and added motion blur too. It was time for some bad guys, so I threw in some TIE fighters. I masked them out and corrected them with levels, hue and saturation, color balance and different opacity values. At least one had to be crashing, so I added a smoke trail with the same technique I used for the other 10,000 smoke layers I did. Same idea for the X-Wings. I masked them out and used liquify, color balance, levels and hue and saturation and another smoke trail. Then I finally added some laser beams, but you can barely see them, so yeah. Right, so with everything in place, I think it's time for a camera raw filter again. Just like I did with the previous episode, here's a flowchart of my raw settings, and honestly, this time there's not really anything special here, just some regular adjustments I guess. One weird thing though is that I left the luminance tab under the HSL section completely untouched, and I don't remember doing that. So either I forgot it or it just didn't make anything look better. But well, there you go, that's pretty much how I made the Battle of Jakku. Now, there's a pretty important thing I want to discuss. A lot of people ask me where they can buy or download my Star Wars desktop wallpapers, and every time I have to give the same answer. You can't download or buy them. And that sucks, because I'd love to sell them to anyone who is interested. However, there's a thing called intellectual property. If you want to know what that is exactly and how it works, you can find all that stuff online, but what matters now is this. I am not allowed to make any money with Star Wars themed artworks. I did some research and it turns out it's illegal to even sell your fan arts. So if I could sell them, I would, but I just can't. Now I know that some of you might think, why don't you just give them away for free? Well, imagine you made something very cool and you're very proud of it, and a lot of people wanna have it. It would feel wrong to give away something you've put lots of effort and time in, and next to that, if I publish something online, free for anyone, it's probably gonna appear on one of those weird pirates websites where people or bots or whatever claim it's theirs, and you know, you basically lose the little authority you have. So I'm so sorry, it's just the rules. However, For once, I actually am giving away one of my desktop wallpapers in full HD. This means for your desktop it's the perfect resolution, but it's actually not even half of the full quality. This way I don't really feel like I'm losing anything huge. One important thing though, it's only gonna be available for 1 week. So as soon as it's online, which I will announce on Instagram and YouTube on the community tab, you gotta make sure to grab it if you want it. To make sure you guys are satisfied, I'm making a new poll on the community tab where all of you can vote on which Star Wars wallpaper you'd like to have. The one with the most votes will be available in full HD quality for 1 week, so stay tuned. I want to thank you for watching, really. I'm really thankful for that. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be doing this right now. Thank you. So if you like my content, feel free to subscribe and tell your friends about how super cool about my channel. Then I hope I will see you in my next video.